Christmas night in São Bernardo has always been magical. A night where the air hums with celebration and the streets glow with fireworks bursting in the sky. I remember standing in my living room, the faint scent of pine from our modest Christmas tree mixing with the aroma of food left over from dinner. The neighborhood buzzed with music, laughter, and distant cheers, the kind of energy that wraps around you and makes you feel alive. But as the night deepened, I felt this unexplainable pull to step outside. I grabbed a jacket and climbed to the highest point of our house, a small flat rooftop that offered an unobstructed view of the city. It wasn't the first time I'd done this. I always loved watching the chaos of fireworks painting the night sky. This night, however, felt different. I couldn't pinpoint why, but there was a strange stillness beneath the noise, like the city was breathing differently. Leaning against the wall, I gazed at the horizon, letting the explosions of red, green, and gold dazzle my eyes. My mind wandered as I thought about the simplicity of the moment, about how peaceful it felt to be alone above the world. Then I saw it, a strange, faint flicker of light hovering near the edge of the sky. At first, I thought it was part of the fireworks display, just another spark fading into the darkness. But it didn't fade. It lingered, moving in ways that didn't make sense. Parallel, sharp movements, back and forth, faster than anything I'd seen before. I squinted, leaning forward. Was it a plane? No. Too low and too erratic. A helicopter? That didn't seem right either. My curiosity piqued. But I wasn't scared. Not yet. I remember thinking it was odd but not impossible. Then it started rising, its lights flashing in a rhythmic, almost taunting pattern. My stomach tightened as it changed direction, its path aligning directly toward me. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I wasn't sure why I couldn't look away. I should have felt frightened, but in that moment, all I felt was an overwhelming sense of unease. It wasn't until later that I'd realized this was only the beginning. As the light approached, I could feel a strange vibration in the air. It wasn't loud, nothing like the rumble of an engine or the whir of a helicopter, but there was a subtle hum that seemed to resonate in my chest. I stood there, transfixed, unable to tear my eyes away from the object now floating almost directly above me. It was larger than I initially thought, at least the size of a small car, and its shape was hard to define. The lights pulsated in different colors, not like the sharp flickers of a drone, but more organic, like they were alive. The object hovered, shifting slightly in midair, its movements impossibly precise, like it was studying me as much as I was studying it. I didn't feel fear, not the kind you'd expect anyway. It was more like a primal unease, a gnawing instinct in the back of my mind telling me this wasn't normal. I stood still, my body stiff as if some unseen force was holding me in place. Am I imagining this? I whispered to myself, half expecting the object to vanish like a hallucination. But it didn't. It stayed there, its lights growing brighter, almost blinding. The rooftop around me was bathed in its glow, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I could see the faint outline of something moving within the lights. That's when I realized I wasn't just looking at the object. It was looking back at me. A sudden surge of panic shot through me, and my legs finally responded. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the edge of the roof. My heart pounded as I bolted down the stairs, slamming the door behind me. Inside, the house felt suffocatingly quiet. The sounds of fireworks outside were muffled, distant, as if the world had shrunk. I tried to steady my breathing, but my thoughts raced. What was that? It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a drone. I grabbed my phone, fumbling with the screen as I dialed my cousin. He was older, more logical, the kind of person who could rationalize anything. When he finally picked up, I barely managed to explain what I had seen. He listened, his tone calm but dismissive. "It's probably a drone," he said. People use them for all kinds of things, especially during celebrations like this. Lights, weird movements. That's just how they work. But his words didn't comfort me. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't something as simple as a drone. Drones don't hum like that. Drones don't make the air feel heavy, like the atmosphere itself was alive. Still, I nodded along, pretending his explanation made sense. I didn't want to sound crazy, but deep down, I knew I had seen something unexplainable, something that defied everything I thought I knew about the world. As I hung up the phone, I glanced toward the window, half expecting to see the lights again. The thought of going back to the rooftop made my stomach churn, but a part of me felt drawn to it, as if the object was still out there, waiting for me. And then I noticed it, the hum. Faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable. It was still there. The hum stayed with me, lingering like an itch I couldn't scratch. I paced the room, my thoughts a chaotic swirl of fear and curiosity. Every rational part of me screamed to leave it alone, but something deeper pulled me back toward the rooftop. I grabbed a flashlight, not that it would do much against whatever was out there, and crept toward the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last, the silence around me broken only by the distant pops of fireworks outside. When I reached the door leading to the roof, I hesitated, my hand hovering over the handle. My chest tightened as the faint hum grew louder, a low vibration that seemed to echo inside my head. "What am I doing?" I muttered to myself, but before I could answer, I pushed the door open. The rooftop was bathed in the pale glow of the full moon, but it wasn't the moonlight that caught my attention. The object had returned, or maybe it had never left. It hovered in the same spot, its lights pulsating rhythmically. This time, I could see it more clearly. The shape was wrong. It wasn't a clean design like you'd expect from something man-made. Its surface looked almost organic, shifting subtly, as if it were alive. The lights weren't just illuminating the object. They seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. I stood frozen, my flashlight useless in my grip. The hum grew louder, resonating through my entire body, making my teeth chatter. It felt like the object was aware of me, like it was observing me. I tried to back away, but my feet wouldn't move. My limbs felt heavy, as though the air itself had thickened around me. Then, without warning, the light shifted. A beam of light shot out from the object, hitting the ground a few feet in front of me. It wasn't harsh like a spotlight. It was soft, almost inviting, casting a warm glow that seemed out of place in the eerie setting. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to get out of there. But instead, I found myself stepping closer. The light seemed to pull me in, my body moving on its own, as if I were caught in some invisible current. As I approached the beam, the air grew warmer, the hum louder. The object lowered slightly, its lights flickering in a pattern I couldn't understand. It felt like it was trying to communicate, like it was waiting for something. Then I saw it. Within the glow, a faint silhouette began to take shape. It was humanoid, but its features were indistinct, blurred by the shifting light. My breath caught in my throat as the figure moved closer, stepping out of the beam and into the moonlight. It wasn't human. Its form was tall and slender, its skin a pale, almost translucent hue that reflected the light. Its eyes, large, dark, and unblinking, seemed to pierce through me. I couldn't look away, trapped in its gaze as an overwhelming sense of dread washed over me. What are you?" I managed to whisper, my voice trembling. The figure tilted its head, as if it understood me. Then it raised a hand, its long, thin fingers extending toward me. The moment its hand moved, the hum became deafening, a sound that wasn't just heard but felt, vibrating through my bones. I stumbled backward, the spell broken, and the figure paused. For a fleeting moment, I thought it might let me go. But then, the lights flared brighter, enveloping the entire rooftop in an intense glow. And everything went dark. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed was the silence. The hum was gone, replaced by the faint crackle of fireworks in the distance. My body felt heavy, my head pounding as if I had been hit with a sledgehammer. I was lying on the rooftop, staring up at the stars. At first, I thought it had all been a bad dream, a vivid hallucination brought on by exhaustion or some trick of the mind. But when I tried to sit up, pain shot through my limbs, and I realized something was wrong. My hands were trembling as I reached for my phone in my pocket. It was still there, but the screen wouldn't turn on. The device was dead, unresponsive, as if it had been fried. Then I noticed my surroundings. The area of the roof where the light had been was scorched, the tiles blackened and cracked. A faint smell of burnt metal lingered in the air. My flashlight, which I must have dropped, lay a few feet away, its lens shattered. As I staggered to my feet, I caught sight of my reflection in a broken piece of glass. My face looked pale, my eyes bloodshot, but there was something else, something on my neck. I leaned closer, my heart pounding as I examined the mark. It was small, almost like a burn, but in a distinct pattern, a series of tiny, concentric circles etched into my skin. Panic set in. I stumbled back into the house, locking the door behind me, as if that would keep whatever was out. The world felt surreal, like I was moving through a dream I couldn't wake up from. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I grabbed a mirror to get a better look at the mark. It didn't hurt, but the sight of it made my stomach churn. I scrubbed at it with soap and water, desperate to erase it, but the mark wouldn't fade. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I had fallen and hurt myself. Maybe the object had been some kind of advanced drone, as my cousin suggested, but no explanation made sense. I spent the next few hours pacing the house, unable to sit still. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow seemed to shift in the corner of my eye. I felt like I was being watched, as if the object hadn't truly left. And then, at 3:33 a.m., my phone turned on. The screen lit up with a soft glow. Despite the fact that the battery had been completely drained, the device buzzed in my hand, the vibrations almost rhythmic, like a heartbeat. A message appeared on the screen. It wasn't in any language I recognized, just a series of strange symbols, glowing faintly against the dark background. They pulsed in time with the vibrations, almost hypnotic in their movement. I tried to take a screenshot, but the screen went black before I could do anything. That's when I heard it again, the hum. This time, it wasn't outside. It was coming from within the house. The hum grew louder, resonating through the walls and floors like the vibrations of a massive engine. My chest tightened as I realized the sound wasn't coming from any specific direction. It was everywhere, surrounding me. I froze, gripping my phone like a lifeline, even though it was now dead again. The mark on my neck began to tingle, a faint warmth spreading through my skin. It wasn't painful, but it was enough to make my heartbeat quicken. The house seemed to shift. Shadows moved unnaturally, pooling in corners where they didn't belong. The lights flickered, casting the room into brief bursts of darkness. And then I saw it. Standing at the edge of the living room was a figure, not entirely human, not entirely anything I could recognize. Its form shimmered as if it were made of liquid metal, constantly shifting and reforming itself. Its face was featureless, save for 2 pinpoints of light where eyes should have been, glowing faintly with the same color as the symbols on my phone. I wanted to run, to scream, but my body refused to obey. I was rooted in place, paralyzed by the sheer presence of the thing. It raised an arm, or what resembled an arm, toward me. A beam of light extended from its hand, scanning me from head to toe. As it passed over the mark on my neck, the tingling turned into a searing heat. I gasped, clutching at the spot, but there was no relief. The figure tilted its head, as if curious, and then spoke, except it didn't speak with words. The voice was inside my head, an alien presence that bypassed sound entirely. It wasn't a language I understood, yet somehow I knew what it meant. "You are marked." Before I could process what it meant, the figure began to dissolve, its form collapsing into a cascade of glowing particles. The particles swirled around me, spinning faster and faster until they formed a vortex of light. The hum reached a deafening crescendo, and then silence. When I opened my eyes, I was alone. The figure was gone. The hum had vanished, and the house was eerily still. But the mark on my neck remained, now pulsing faintly in the dark. The next few days passed in a blur. I didn't tell anyone what had happened. Not my cousin, not my family. Who would believe me? But I knew something had changed. Every time I stepped outside, I felt it, the weight of unseen eyes following me. Electronics in my house began to malfunction without explanation, lights flickering, devices turning on and off by themselves. And the dreams, they weren't dreams, not really. Every night, I found myself standing under that same star-filled sky, the hum vibrating in my chest, the mark on my neck burning like a brand. I would see the figure in the distance, always watching, always waiting. I don't know what it wants or why it chose me, but I can't escape the feeling that this isn't over. Whatever I saw that night, whatever marked me, it's still out there, and I think it's coming back.